Okay, let's go on Non-naturalist Moral Causation by Audrey Powers. Audrey Powers is on a mission to give way for moral facts to be causes of natural facts. And this is not an argument to prove non-naturalism, and Powers constantly underlines that naturalists are not excluded by this explanation. And the way that moral facts can be cautiously efficacious is not in favor of either side, non-naturalist or naturalist, even though it is, according to Powers, kind of the only upper hand that naturalists have, not having to explain how moral facts supervene on natural facts due to the naturalist properties acting in the same way, which most non-naturalists claim that their properties does not. So the explanation she gives does not include any of the perspectives. She also mentions throughout her exposition other theories, but holds that those are unnecessary to investigate and won't affect this proposal, like Bennett's exclusion problem and whether naturalism or non-naturalism are true. She does, however, define non-naturalism in this, like, to prove her point. So, well, she also states that the moral causation is the problem that must be solved to not reject non-naturalism. And on page 11, she states that, I quote, if the non-naturalist moral facts interact just like the natural and behave like just like natural and stand in relation to other facts just like natural, then what's so non-natural about them anyway? She also, in the end, mentions somewhere that why don't we just call every fact that causes something natural facts? But let's start from the beginning. So Powers provides an explanation of how moral facts, that is, non-natural facts, can be cautiously efficacious. Simply because, and she writes this on page 1, I quote, it seems that there is a link between the moral and my feelings. And the end quote. And she uses an example of a friend breaking a promise. So something morally bad went on, which caused her feelings that something morally bad went on. So, and I continue quoting, we have knowledge of the moral, so surely the moral is cautiously efficacious. End quote. So that means the non-natural moral facts are the cause of natural fact. And Powers' way of explaining this is surely there is a moral fact that causes the natural fact, and this natural fact is the feeling that something moral went on. So here's the link. And she mentions some valid critiques of this proposal, which we find in Hartman, for example, that maybe the natural fact is caused by your belief about the moral and not the moral itself. And now I'm just bracketing my own comment here. Yes, but if the natural fact is caused by my belief about the moral and not the moral itself, why cannot the moral itself be the cause of my belief about the moral? But then I also realized, yeah, this is also being used as a proof of God existence. Like, yeah, but maybe God exists and that's why I believe. And also, is this making the moral some kind of placebo effect? End of that personal thought brackets. Moving on. So, following this, the defining of a non-naturalist view, moral facts must cause natural facts. But we still wonder, how can non-natural phenomena cause natural facts? And Powers mentions the Cartesian soul or ghosts, like how can they have an impact on matter just like natural facts, like a rainstorm can affect matter? How can moral facts do something? And since previously we already have some non-naturalist suggestions, such as the brute necessity from McPherson and grounding from Rosen, and I also think that Hathiagadi mentions the grounding. So Powers builds on the non-naturalist view that moral facts exist but are different to natural facts, that the moral facts are cis generis unique. And she then introduces her tools to decide whether moral facts can be cautious. And it is through difference making and proportionality. And we start off by the difference making. Shortly, a cause makes a difference to whether or not an effect occurs. So she adopts this from Lewis and this bad difference making that C is a cause of E if and only if the absence of C would result in the absence of E. And we have seen this type of refinement of this formula also in Krödel and Vasen's papers. And these are attempts to kind of get to the core of how a cause can be efficient and exclude all the counterfactuals. And this is done by going backwards from the effect, deconstructing it into the particles of the causes to decide whether this cause can be defined as the only one making difference or creating this particular effect. So this first bad difference making, we can all argue, but what if this other thing happened at the same time? And how do we know? So then we must add something to this formula. And Powers does this, and we have this less bad difference making, where C is the cause of E if and only the absence of C, holding all else fixed, will result in the absence of E. And here I want to make an important note about higher level facts and lower level facts, which are not previously mentioned and introduced. I know Vasen also uses these definitions, and from what I understand, we have the lower level natural facts, and that are basic physics, gravity, particle matters, and the higher level natural facts is more like someone is doing something and yeah, bigger things. And Power uses this like doing a cartwheel, for example. So doing a cartwheel is the cause of the lace breaking. Um, so the cartwheel is a higher level fact, but it is also made up by physical particles in the body. So that's why this less bad difference making is also not great, because holding all else fixed, that would mean but we cannot hold. Yeah. So the all else fixed is problematic because the actual causation, let's say doing a cartwheel, also depends on other facts like physics. So skip the all other things held, and instead here we go with the new difference making. C is a cause of E if and only if the absence of C holding all else fixed insofar as metaphysically possible would result in the absence of E. All right, the Power admits that this is a complex, just formulating, and also she's right, like she doesn't even know what it means to hold all else fixed insofar as metaphysically possible, but just to understand this difference making is that something is making a difference. And what Power wants to do is to establish a relationship and causality from the higher level moral facts to the lower level natural facts because of the supervenience of non-naturalists and the discussion on how the moral supervenes on the natural. And the conclusion is like, okay, the moral facts are grounded in natural facts. Now we have the grounding. Um, so it is a moral fact that it is wrong to tell a lie, and it's grounded in the natural fact that someone is telling a lie. But it is partly grounded in the moral law that it is wrong to lie. So the conclusion in favor of this thesis is that the moral facts are metaphysically necessitated by the natural facts and metaphysically necessitated by the moral law. So we have again a necessity relationship. This time it's not a brute necessity, this is a metaphysical one. So we have the moral facts are metaphysically necessitated by lower level natural facts. the physical particles. But then it is weird because how can these particles necessitate something being morally wrong? So we need more. We need more stuff for this to work. That's why powers also adds proportionality. A cause is proportional to its effect if and only if it is both required and enough for its effect. So this is then directly applicable to the question of moral causation, because if there is a fact that will cause you to feel that it is wrong, what you feel is an effect of the moral fact. And there is, she uses a lot of other examples in difference making and proportionality from the other papers as well, and I don't want to go through them. Like the bird pecking, if it's scarlet or red in this proportionality, like how much change must be done, or the gasoline drenched cat, as well as screaming boo on tape being recorded. So she does all the argument, but the main focus is the cause big enough to be the cause of the effect? And the focus number one, can morals be the cause of the effect? And she uses difference making and proportionality to prove that moral facts cause natural facts. They can. So I would say she's doing a good job. However, we now have new problems. In Yeah, we have new problems of this. If moral causation is true, how can we define the moral facts? And if moral facts is, how can we explain moral differences? Like someone thinks eating beef is healthy and good, and someone claims the cow is holy and should be walking freely in the streets. Do they develop, like, how can a moral fact be fixed? Maybe that's the question for. And if moral causation is true, can it provide an explanation for people not feeling that something morally bad was going on? Or is the consequence of moral causation being true that people neglect natural facts such as feelings of something morally bad was going on? Moving on to the questions. Yeah, so a discussion, it's starting on page 13, and it's about moral absence causation, which I found is interesting. And my question for you is that sometimes moral are explained in terms of dialectic relationship, like badness is the absence of goodness, which would make the moral causation a negative. So will difference making and proportionality still hold? Um, if the moral fact is a negative. And question 2, I need help with, I got stuck about these lower level natural facts and the higher level facts. Because I also feel like there's a lower level moral fact that is missing in this definition. But I will read through what Power says, and then maybe you can help me to understand this and maybe illustrate with an example so that I would understand. So she wants to secure causal, status for higher level facts that stand in certain relation to particular lower level facts. All of the facts under discussion have been natural and non-moral. I've been talking about storms and cartwheels and particles. I've not yet said anything about the non-natural or the moral or the causal status of these things. But here is what to be said. Higher level non-natural moral facts, high moral facts, stand in the same kind of relations to the same kinds of lower level natural facts. On the most reasonable and widely accepted pictures of non-naturalist moral metaphysics, so the accounts of causation I've described above will have non-natural moral facts like these come out as cautiously efficacious. And that was page 5, and it is this the same kinds of lower level. And there is, though, a more interesting worry in the vicinity. One way of understanding what I'm doing here is that I'm trying to make non-naturalism more naturalistic, respectable. The moral facts I describe, and here is, they stand in the same kind of relations to lower level natural facts as higher level non-moral natural facts do. And they behave like these high level natural facts, even if the moral facts are non-natural. And if the higher level non-moral natural facts don't cause, and then if say there is only causation at the level of fundamental physics, then neither do the moral ones. But if the higher level non-moral natural facts do cause, and according to the most theories of causation as well as common sense they do, then the moral ones do too. Um, and I just don't, I cannot grasp this really. And the only thing is like the moral facts relationship to the lower level, it's the physical particles, yeah. And then so but the moral facts, they behave like the higher level natural facts, and the higher level natural facts, it's the doing, it's the cartwheel, it's the action. So the moral facts is action. Yeah. I need help with this. And that was all I had. Thank you.